What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're back again with another Friday stream where we get together as a community and talk about whatever topic I come up with at the last minute on Friday. Actually, it wasn't at the last minute today. I was a little bit more prepared. I wanted to make sure that I had something scheduled in the morning before too much of the day got away from me like last week. So I consulted with my good friends in the System Crafters IRC channel. And, you know, we conferred, we considered different options. And the one that we landed on today is talking about using Emacs in the terminal and trying to make the most of the experience. So, excuse me. Glenda says, on time for shadowing. Yes, we're foreshadowing all the possible technical problems that can come up in a stream like this because apparently something always goes wrong. That's just the life of being a once-a-week streamer who doesn't stream enough to have a more reliable setup. Or maybe I'm just too lazy to have a more reliable setup. I don't know. I don't really know what the answer is to this dilemma that I have. But still, we show up every Friday, most Fridays, and we have a good time. So it's okay, right? Alternate Vet says, fishing topic today. Yeah, I was definitely fishing for a topic today, but it wasn't fishing in the traditional sense. I was fishing the IRC for a topic, and you know, I think we came together. The brain trust came together. We came up with an idea, and now we're going to execute on it. So it's all good. I saw a lot of good suggestions in the IRC, so I hope that people remembered their suggestions from this morning because I'll probably need to try out a few of those at some point. So this is week 4 of me being sick. Still, I think I'm on virus number 3 at this point, and it's going really well, I have to say. If you have kids in school, I recommend trying to get every virus you possibly can, just to sort of see what the range of viruses are out in the world, and to experience, you know, the highs and lows of all of them. I would have to say that all these respiratory viruses are just, I don't know, they all have their own lovely qualities. This one seems to have, you know, less of the, well, I don't want to go too much into detail. There's just more dry coughing, let's just say, okay? It's wonderful. I'm having a great time. You know, I feel like I'm really experiencing the local cultivation of germs in Athens. It's really working out well for me. Okay, went too much into detail there. Let's say hello to the people who are here so far. Hello to Pie the Sailor. I'm sorry, Carabay, not sure how you pronounce your name. There's too many numbers in it. Alternate Ved, Benoit, Glenn, Robin, Mike, Leonix. Let's see, I see Arnaud, I see Erky. Who else am I seeing in the chat? Cow 2001, KPG. Yes, we're not constant quite yet, KPG. Yes, Leonix, I am actually a virus sommelier by this point. I just test them all for you so that I can tell you the pros and cons of each of the viruses. And I would say that they basically all just have cons. There's no pro to any of this. You know, I'm basically almost losing my voice every day of the week. You know, the creeping effects of laryngitis on a, you know, every other day basis. I have too many workspaces up, so if you see me pop in between things, it's just because I'm getting confused now. Hello to Kayovsky and Big Edie and Fade. Let me see who's over on the YouTube side. On the YouTube side, we have Emulation Edu, Minas Mezar, Diraj, Jerry Fab, Okal, Alvar. That's Alvaro, probably. Is it Alvar, actually? Cool. Anton. Yes, I'm glad to see the people who aren't normally able to come. Oh, and Martin as well. The people who aren't normally able to come, but who are showing up today. I'm glad to see all of you. Very nice to see all of you. Okay, so yes, I gave you the update on me being sick. Lovely, yes. The update of me buying a computer is that I tried again to buy a computer this week and have the same problem. So I have to go talk to somebody because I can't be limping around on a single computer for much longer because it's not working out too well for me. But that's okay. We're figuring it out here. Let's get into the news. So first of all, there actually was a new System Crafters video this week. That makes 4 this year. Wow. Oh, and the other, well, I'll get to that. Anyway, point being, new Geeks video. Probably the first Geeks video I've done since 2022 when I did the video 5 Reasons to Learn Geeks in 2022. And apparently I didn't do any Geeks videos in 2023, so mea culpa. I did do a talk at FOSDEM. Was it 2022 or 2023? Geeks Home. Which year was that? There we go, 2023. So maybe you haven't seen that before. I did a talk at FOSDEM 2023, Introduction to Geeks Home. So that kind of counts as a System Crafters video, but I never released it on the channel. I'm gonna do some more Geeks Home videos soon that are more appropriate for the channel, but we'll get back to that. Anyway, the video this week is how to organize your Geeks configuration. I get a lot of questions about this because of the way that I have my Geeks config set up, where I effectively make my .files folder into a Guile module path, and then load all of my Geeks configuration modules from there. So that video basically just goes through explaining to you how to do that for yourself. And we start with a set of pre-existing demo configuration files that I came up with and turn those into Guile modules and then verify that they will be loading. So we don't actually apply the configuration yet because that's up to you to do, but at least we make sure that they will load correctly. So I think it's a pretty useful video. So far, not such a great turnout on the views, but I think that's just sort of the way it is for Geeks. We'll see what the algorithm does for me over time. Probably not too much. But I kind of want to make some more Geeks videos anyway, because that's one area where we haven't spent a whole lot of time, and there's a lot still that I have to say about Geeks. So I think I'm just going to continue making some Geeks videos regardless of how many views they get, just to kind of fill in those gaps, because I don't know, I've learned a lot about Geeks over the last couple of years, and the way that I've used Geeks has changed a lot. If you watch that Geeks London, let's see if YouTube decides to load. Let me know if the stream starts dying. Geeks London, David Wilson. Yeah, Geeks System Crafting taught by David Wilson. I gave a lot of tips, my Geeks best practices in that video, or in that talk, basically. I'll probably try to break some of those into actual videos because there's a lot of useful stuff in there that I kind of learned over time. So anyway, a lot of that's going to be coming out. Peter says, hey Peter, good video, got good pointers. Glad to hear that. Tendomog says, I watched it today, +1. Excuse me. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to talk about with Geeks. Probably won't be the most popular stuff on the internet, but surprisingly, the 5 Reasons to Learn Geeks video, whatever it was called, got like 80,000 views. So people are curious about it. I actually have a video that I'll do next week that might stir up some trouble, which is called Why I Choose Geeks Over NixOS, because people ask me that question a lot too. So keep an eye out for that one. I've already got the script about halfway done, so hopefully that will get materialized soon. Yeah, Peter says, well, it is a niche in a niche. Yeah, I think it's probably nested pretty far down the niche hierarchy. So yeah, I'm kind of like, you know, in a dangerous territory as a content creator who's trying to make a living. I'm talking about things that only a very small set of people are going to be interested in. That's okay though. Karabe says, Prot tries to run Geeks again when? I have no idea. You know, Prot has, you know, bigger problems to solve in his life, you know, like having running water and, you know, building a whole house from scratch. These are things that I'm not concerned with because I'm too lazy. So I just tinker with Geeks and Emacs configurations all day. Cal says, Flame Wars get YouTube views. Yeah, I don't want to start a Flame War. I just want to give like a personal perspective on why I use Geeks over NixOS. Like, not even thinking about features. There's no feature comparison. Not really comparing like what makes them different. Like just me saying for myself why I use it over NixOS, because I think that's the only really authentic answer that I can give anyone. I haven't used NixOS in 10 years. I tried it in 2014. I have not used it since then, so I can't give an expert opinion on NixOS. All I can tell you is why I have been using Geeks and not NixOS. So that's what you'll get. Peter says, I've been building a toilet from scratch. That is already plenty. Yes, that doesn't sound like a good idea for me. I think if I did that, I would have a very disgusting mess on my hands some days after. Alternate Vet says, you're playing for the long game. Yeah, I don't know. There's something to be said for just continuing to hack away at making videos. And then eventually one day people wake up and realize, oh, I really want to learn Geeks. And then you have a whole bunch of stuff there. So it's kind of useful. All right. Let's check the YouTube chat real quick. It's Alvar. Okay. Okay. So, the next thing, aside from the video that I just mentioned, is that the hands-on Gauss Scheme for Beginners course is now on demand. I've been mentioning this the last few weeks. You're probably tired of hearing about it by now. It's maybe the last time I mention it, just because I don't want to kind of overdo it on that. But basically, it's the course that we've been doing this year, where I teach Guile Scheme, functional programming, and some sort of practical programming aspects in Guile Scheme. So it's really useful if you want to kind of flesh out your understanding of Scheme, and especially Guile if you're going to be doing things with Geeks, or just, using Guile as a programming language. So you can go check out the website to get more information about that and sign up for it. It's on demand, which means that as soon as you sign up for it, you get access to it immediately. You also get added to a forum where you can ask questions, which I need to do a better job of answering because I've been busy. But yes, that is a place where you can discuss with other people about this. In fact, I need to be adding the people who went through the previous iterations into this group so that everybody can be involved in the conversation. So keep an eye out for that if you're in this stream right now and you haven't been added to that yet. Let me know. Also, very importantly, the Autumn Lisp Game Jam is coming up this week. Not this week, but the following week, which is ending with the 25th. I guess Friday is the 25th. I really botched that statement. Anyway, the Autumn Lisp Game Jam is next Friday. It's a 10-day long game jam where you can use a Lisp of your choice, even one that you wrote yourself, and write a game. The rules are on the webpage. We had a lot of fun the last two times. So we did it, or at least I did it last autumn and then this spring. So we did a solitaire game last autumn and like a kind of a reverse dungeon crawler game this spring, which was a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun chatting with people about it on the streams I did and also in the IRC. So it's a really good time if you're interested in game development at all. I highly recommend jumping in on this because maybe you'll have an opportunity to write a game that you've never been able to do before if you've been looking for an opportunity. I still have not 100% decided whether I'm going to participate or not. I'm itching to kind of do it, but at the same time, I'm trying to estimate how much time I have available. So I don't know. If people bug me this week enough, I might consider doing it. I still haven't decided if I would use Hoot or Janet yet. So I probably should use Hoot though. Dave says, you botched it. I sure did, didn't I? Why are we peering at Robin? Oh, right. Yes. The hard fork into common Lisp based Geeks, and Robin says, working on it. That sounds dangerous. And Fade says, wait, what? And Robin says, well, not based per se. What does that mean? Fade says, can somebody answer once and for all, is Guile just very slow or does Geeks hit the disk really hard? I think the problem is that Geeks is building a huge dependency graph in memory of the things that you're building, especially if you're doing a system configuration, and it's trying to chew through all that and decide which things need to be built or rebuilt. So it's computationally complex, period. However, I'm no expert in the inner workings of Geeks aside from just, how to extend it and write things for it. So, yeah, that's sort of the nature of things. Benoit says Guile is not lazy evaluation. This is where Nix shines. So that's kind of an interesting point for the conversation that we'll have next week. But yeah, it can be slow. It doesn't bother me though. I mean, you just get used to it. You just deal with it because the value you get out of Geeks is high enough, is valuable enough that you can deal with the fact that it's a little bit slow at times. I don't really care too much. What's not correct, Dave said. Dave says, that's not correct. Please explain. Dave says, I'm looking at Jank Lang today. I've not heard of Jank, I don't think. About geeks being slow? Is that what we're talking about? All right. Okay. So the last thing that I forgot to put here, and I also forgot to mention in maybe the previous week or the week before, is it's actually been 4 years since System Crafter started. Can you believe that? I started the first Emacs from Scratch stream on September 11th of 2020, right? But I didn't actually come up with the name System Crafters and start saying System Crafters in the streams until sometime in early October. So it's been 4 years since then. I'm not gonna like reflect on that too much, but it's pretty interesting that it's been that long. And there's many of you here who have been here with me since then. So it's kind of crazy if you think about it. You know, we've been hanging out, doing these streams, talking about all this weird stuff for a long time. So, you know, thank you all for being a part of it. I appreciate it. You know, like it's been really cool for me to kind of create a place where nerds and geeks can come together to talk about geeks and Emacs. So yes, it's been 4 years of System Crafters. Let's see. Dave says, would be a big distraction to the stream. There's plenty of laziness happening in geeks. Well, we should probably chat about that at some point. Cal says, 4 years, been here like 2. Yes, but it's been just an excellent 2 years, Cal. Jerry says, happy anniversary. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Jerry. Jerry's been around since the beginning, too. I've been seeing Jerry in the live stream chat for a long time. Everybody says, first video of yours I saw was on Logseek. I was a Logseek user back then, switched to Note. That's cool. Well, that was after I moved to Greece. That's probably 2022 then. 4 years. Yeah, I know, Fade. Thanks, Big Edie. Here's to another 4. Big Edie's also been around since that long, too, since the original Emacs from Scratch streams. He had a different name back then. Hi, the Sailor says, I remember the F-Sharp videos. Did you see them when they came out, though? Because that was 2016, which is an incredibly long time ago. I don't want to think about that too much. If you go back and look at those videos, I look very different. Let's just say that. Okay. So, today, I want to talk about why I think Emacs, using Emacs in the terminal as opposed to the graphical Emacs is pretty useful. Because I've actually had a number of occasions recently to use it. And there's a few things that I've realized about some of the choices that I made this year that actually have helped me out in making Emacs more useful to me in more circumstances. So let me just kind of go through this. I haven't really prepared much on what I wanted to say on this. But I do want to try to get my thoughts down and discuss it with all of you to see what your thoughts are as well, because I think that it's kind of underutilized. Maybe there's people out there who only use terminal Emacs, but I don't. I'm using graphical Emacs, as you see right in front of me. We can kind of talk about the pros and cons, but I don't really reach for terminal Emacs very frequently, but I think I might start doing it more often. So, was it this year that I did the Evil No More stream where I got rid of evil mode? It may be this year, because this year's almost over. But earlier this year, I stopped using evil mode. And the reason why is because I wanted to get used to using the inbox Emacs editing key bindings, and key bindings for everything else really, so that whenever I'm using Emacs in an unconfigured state, like if I'm doing demonstrations, teaching people how to use Emacs, or I'm maybe installing geeks on a system, or I'm like in a remote machine somewhere or whatever, that I feel more comfortable, I can get things done. I don't have to like keep fighting against the key bindings because I'm used to evil mode. I can say with certainty that after about a month of not using evil mode, I don't want to go back. Evil mode and Vim key bindings make you quite a lot more productive for certain editing tasks, but if you have to install a package to get those, and I know there's Viper mode, but that's not really the same in my opinion. That's built into Emacs, but it doesn't really feel the same. If you have to install a package to get your baseline key bindings for editing pulled in, then you're going to be kind of handicapped whenever you have to use Emacs in a circumstance where you don't have your full Emacs configuration or community packages available. Now, yes, obviously you can install Evo Mode on a remote machine very easily, but I'm trying to like reduce the number of things that I depend on so that I have more freedom, because sometimes constraints lead to more freedom because you don't have to be so beholden to specific choices that you've made. So getting rid of Evo Mode was pretty useful for me. I've also tried to get rid of other things in my configuration that were maybe helping me out a lot, but I can't think at the moment of what things they were. I just know I've been deleting things gradually over time, but I still use, Vertigo, Embark, Consult, and packages like that, which add a lot of value, but they're definitely not built into Emacs. So whenever I do use Emacs in the terminal for some reason, still there's some like scaling down of kind of my workflow to the baseline of Emacs. So kind of there's two perspectives in this stream. One is I kind of want to talk about the benefits of using Emacs in a terminal and kind of what I've seen so far, what context I've used it in. And then there's also trying to come up with a minimal configuration that is just enough to add some extra niceties to the terminal Emacs config without pulling in too many community packages, which kind of sounds like something we've done recently, but I can't remember what it was. And maybe it's a file that you can just kind of drop into a machine and just load it up without having to install anything extra. Like you could SCP that file into a machine and just be done, right? Robin says, design is determined primarily by constraints. Oh, I would like 100% agree with that. Because, well, let's see. Yeah, determined primarily by constraints. Because that's what everything has constraints. If you have no constraints, then you've got no shape for a solution. Because it could be anything. Then you just keep adding crap. And there's no direction, right? So you need constraints. Okay, so that was rambling. Do we all understand what we're talking about today? So why using Emacs in the terminal can be useful. Places where you might want to do this. How to minimally configure Emacs to be slightly nicer to use in the terminal. Just ditch caps lock, useless key, the normal in caps lock. That's one thing I did have a problem with, is that the key remappings like caps lock to control aren't doable by default there in the terminal, unless you have a terminal emulator that can do it for you, I guess. Reacting to that article, no, we're not going to react to the article, but there is an article here that has some really nice suggestions by Wei Hon. Sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not, but that's okay. Using Emacs in a terminal. So I happened to run across this post last week, kind of randomly, as I was also thinking about this concept a little bit. And Wei has some suggestions on things you can do to improve the experience overall. We might try some of these. There's definitely some useful stuff in here. So I recommend reading this if you want to try using a terminal configuration. I actually think I might try to use a terminal Emacs config for most of the things I would want to do. Because what do you get from graphical Emacs? You get different font faces, like, let's say multiple font faces in the same buffer. So for instance, like the heading font for org mode is different than the text in the buffer here, or at least the size is different. So you have like differences in font size, font weight, font face, etc. You can show images inside of graphical Emacs. Pop-up menus are a bit better in graphical Emacs. Child frames work better in graphical Emacs. Let's see, Ashraz says you get inline images. Hey, Ashraz. Only quickly passing by today. That's unfortunate. Images and org files. Let's see. Alternate Ved says KeyD or Kanata works also in TTY. I'll have to take a look at that. Peter says, I remap by intercepting input events in the kernel. Works everywhere consistently. That sounds hardcore. I wonder if something in Geeks config can do that. Let me see what people in the other side are saying. Jerry says, when I'm in the terminal, I use Vim. Yeah, a lot of times I would do that too. But I think that there's a case to be made for using Emacs. Oh, there's some other things I want to say about that too. So, like Emacs versus Termux. Tmux. Let me just try to write some thoughts down here because there's things that are occurring to me right now. Emacs versus Tmux, using it in Termux because that's another thing. There's something else that just crossed my mind. Use Emacs as your login shell, kinda. Well, maybe I'll flesh out what I mean on that. Alvar says, I can't use evil mode because I never learned Vim. I'm too old for that. Yeah, I mean, learning Vim key bindings does take time. Just as learning Emacs key bindings does take time. So you kind of just have to pick which tool you really want to invest your time into and learn the key bindings really well. I would say that if you are really kind of dedicated to using Emacs, you should really try to learn the built-in key bindings better because you will get benefits from that, even though they are not as nicely designed in some ways as Vim key bindings are. I really like the way that Vim key bindings are laid out because they're more on the home row and the editing commands are a lot quicker to type, but still, I think that just knowing the Emacs key bindings is better. Forrest says, use Vim and Evil for a few years, but you always run into something in Linux that uses Emacs bindings, and Vi mode for readline really sucks. Yeah, that's another thing that I have been taking advantage of a little bit more lately that I forgot about, which is that GNU readline, which is used by many shells and REPLs in the terminal. They use Emacs style key bindings for line editing. So, you know, moving back and forth between characters and words or moving to the beginning or end of a line, etc. So like Control A, Control E, Control F, Control B, Alt F, Alt B, things like that do work. So it does give you the ability to use similar key bindings in other places, which is kind of nice if you think about it, because you don't even have to be an Emacs for that to work. Also in graphical programs, a lot of times you will have Emacs style key bindings. I think that even works on Mac OS too, doesn't it? In some places. So there's value to learning the Emacs key bindings because they show up in other places as well. So thanks to Forrest for reminding me of that. Alex says, I have a System 76 keyboard and they place a control key right by space, so I never use my pinky. Control right by space. So instead of Alt, you have Control right by space. That's pretty an interesting position, I'd have to say. What else? Yeah, Carbe says Tmux versus GNU screen. Well, we're not going to get into that. That would be a different discussion. Custom keyboard firmware. Yeah, you could do that. I don't like using non-standard keyboards. I know that I would get value out of using like a non-standard keyboard that I could program the firmware on, but at the same time, I feel like I need to be productive with a laptop keyboard at the same time and not have to mentally context switch. I know that the brain can do that. I've done it before, but I don't want to have to do that. So I'm trying to keep things as simple as possible. Key D is a lot easier to configure. Let me just check that out real quick. Linux Key D. I don't think I've heard of that before. Key remapping daemon for Linux. Is that in Geeks? Come on, let's load. Spinning. Key D. No. Does not look like it. I'm sure it could be packaged. Stamulet says Kmonad was also highly recommended. I believe that's only in Xorg, right? Unless I'm wrong about that. Big Edie says, I've tried doing Emacs keys for a while, but it still feels like the Vim language is much more expressive for editing purposes. It is. On the other hand, I'm actually really happy that I don't have to worry about what mode I'm in anymore, because that is kind of a headache, having to mentally have that state flag in your mind whenever you're trying to start typing on the keyboard. You don't have to constantly be slapping the escape key, which is what I used to do. I would just constantly slap escape, just make sure that I was back in normal mode before I started doing anything. And that was kind of a hard habit to break. I think I've gotten away from that now. I don't slap escape repeatedly anymore. Alden Vez says, I guess your wrists are in pretty great shape. I don't know how, dude. Honestly, I don't have so many problems with RSI. And like I've said before, where's my camera? I'm using this silly, like super silly USB ThinkPad keyboard, right? That is not a good keyboard. In fact, it's very flexy and there's key ghosting. There's all kind of reasons why that's not a good keyboard, but I use it every day and I don't really have problems with RSI. And it's consistent with the laptop keyboards since I use ThinkPads primarily, which that's changing soon, but that's the way it's been up until now. So yeah, I don't know how I'm getting away from that. Maybe it's the way that I'm sitting in my chair, slouching all the way down with my arms straight out. Maybe that helps. I don't know. My back might not like it too much at some point in the future, but yeah, it's worked out okay. So long as I don't do like really repetitive editing, like do the same manual edit to like 100 lines. If I do that, then I'll have trouble. But other than that, I don't have much problem. But maybe the problem is that I don't work very hard. I don't type enough. Maybe that's why I don't get RSI. I have to think about that. That's more of a philosophical problem. All right. It says, I use 0 programs with default Vim binds. So you're actually customizing Vim binds? That's even worse. It says, any program that only obeys Vim binds is likely to be deep sixed before it's installed. Alternate Vet says, I often have sore wrists even though I use split keyboard. There's got to be an explanation for that. I mean, obviously there could be some physiological reasons why people get soreness. But I think it has so much to do with posture and typing style and maybe what you're doing, like what kind of work you're doing. Garabe says it has a micro USB port. Yes, which is also not very strong. And I have 2 of these keyboards and one of them already doesn't really work very well because the micro USB port on the body of it like got bent or something. They're not very good quality. They only cost about $60 or something, so they're really cheap, crappy keyboards. But they have a track point. Once again, this keyboard, I have a track point. I don't have a mouse on my desk. I have not had a mouse on my desk probably in 3 or 4 years now. So I'm just using the track point on this thing all the time, even for video editing and other mouse-driven tasks. I find that to be kind of funny, actually. Track point for life. Micro USB is the devil's work. Yeah, micro USB is terrible. The only keyboard that I would get... Robin coming in with the copy pasta. Ed is the standard text editor. Is that the literal string? It sounds like the literal string. Ed is the standard... Yeah, there we go. It's just kind of like a meme at this point, isn't it? Ed is the standard text editor. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that. I'm so happy to know. Ed is no longer standard, which is what I'm saying. Is it? I mean, how many people are using Ed primarily? Anyway, what was I saying? The only keyboard that I would probably buy at this point is the HHKB Studio because it has a track point in it and it's also a wireless mechanical keyboard, but they're freaking expensive. And I just can't bring myself to pull the trigger on something so expensive that I'm not really sure it's going to help me at all. So yeah, my procrastination saves me money in a lot of cases because I just end up not buying things that I think I might want, and it helps. Ashra says this stream is sponsored by. Yeah, if they gave me a keyboard, I would be very happy to say lots of things about it. Also, Framework computers. If you want to give me a free Framework 13 AMD Ryzen with what is it, 98 gigs of RAM? What is it? Oh, I should mention that too. Anyway, I'll be happy to talk about Framework computers every day. But those of you who don't know, frame.work. you can get a Framework 13 with almost 100 gigabytes of RAM in it now. It's not configurable in the shop, but if you go to the marketplace, they have DDR5 memory modules that are 40 something gigabytes. Where is it? 96 gigabytes, 2 times 48 gigabytes. So you can put 96 gigabytes of RAM in your laptop. I'm doing that. When I buy this laptop, I'm putting 96 gigabytes of RAM in there. Alternate Vet says, yes, Framework guys, please help. This guy is often interrupted by breaking laptops. Dude, that would solve all of our USB-C problems, right? Because you can just replace the USB-C connector. But can it run Crysis? I do not care if it can run Crysis, because Crysis is like, what, 20 years old by now? Can it run Doom Eternal? Alternate Vet says, please sponsor David Will so we can have uninterrupted stream time. Yes, we do end up having interrupted streams for various reasons because my ThinkPads are failing me often. Man, how far are we in here? 36? We haven't really gotten to the meat of this yet. Leonic says, you could put 96 gigs of RAM. Emacs would be pleased, but geeks will want more. Not too much. I mean, I don't really run geeks operations that frequently, like upgrading systems and stuff. Usually I wait like a month in between upgrading something. So it's not that bad. But I don't know. It just feels better having enough RAM that I can just throw anything at the computer and not worry too much. You know, video editing, music production, game development, things like that. What's Dave saying? It wouldn't be an HHKB because it would be something better. Robin says there's a famous Lisper who uses plain EX as his text editor. Well, that's pretty hardcore. Fate says, not a fan of the HHKB, but it does have nice switches. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really an expert on all this stuff. As you can see, I'm more of a software person. I'm focused on just, you know, the software side of the world. Ashra says, David will just need some kind of sponsoring manager. It's amazing what a simple mail can get you sometimes. Yeah, I probably should just be sending emails to places, but I kind of have that insecurity of I don't have really enough views or subscribers to warrant someone giving me free stuff. But if they did it, I would be extremely thankful and willing to talk about it. Oh, that is a good point, Carabe. 96 gigs of RAM, you can run local language models with it. Yeah, definitely. You could load some pretty thick LLM models with that. LLM models? Yeah, that's redundant. Anyway, that would be a pretty useful use case, I think, because, you know, I don't really have enough social interaction. The only person that I can talk to on a daily basis would be an AI chatbot because I'm very lonely and I don't have any friends. So I definitely need to have 96 gigabytes of RAM in my computer so I can load up the best chatbot that's been trained on all the garbage that has been written on the internet over the last 30 years. It says pushing all the streams onto Twitch was a good move followers-wise. Is it? How many people are watching on Twitch right now? It didn't seem like there were that many. But maybe there are. Okay, so key D, I'll have to look at that. That actually looks pretty useful. So CMAC is on Twitch. Great. Fade's on Twitch. Are you on Twitch or are you using MPV to play the Twitch stream? Leonic says, I wonder how many people won't get he's joking. What am I joking about? I don't even know. Is it that unhealthy? Which part? I'm on Twitch in Firefox. How many viewers are on Twitch right now, Fade? Peter says, I saw some YouTuber cluster 2 megabyte maxes to run a huge LLM. Okay, 18 on Twitch. That's great. 97 on YouTube. That's not right, is it? Is there really 97 people? There's 80. Oh, there's 100 on YouTube. Okay, hi. Hello, everybody. You're here for the terminal Emacs discussion. I'm just sitting here rambling the whole time. Welcome to the Friday streams. Okay. I hope that people have fun with me rambling. I mean, come on. It's fun, right? Fade says, it's growing. Well, I don't know. It wasn't growing last week. Just depends on the topic. That's just the way it is. Okay, so why using Emacs in terminal could be useful? Well, let me just say where I've used it recently. Obviously, installing Geeks. Now, when you install Geeks, you have the choice of either using the graphical, quote unquote, graphical installer, which is a lovely red and blue in-curses application, terminal application, that it works. It makes it pretty easy to get a basic Geeks install working. And that you don't really need Emacs for that, obviously, because it does most of the work for you. You just follow some UI prompts and then it configures your system and applies a configuration, you reboot, whatever. The other option is going in the terminal to do the installation steps yourself. And you can kind of do a mixture of both, where you start in the graphical installer, maybe to get your networking stuff set up, and then you switch over to a TTY and then do everything manually from there. So what I have been doing the last couple of years, at least, is that anytime that I install Geeks, I actually don't go straight into the shell. I'll log into the shell, but then I'll immediately start Emacs so that I can use window splitting, obviously text editing, because you're gonna have to edit configuration files, and ANSI term for actually using the terminal inside of Emacs, which I think is kind of a pretty powerful use case when you think about it, because a lot of people will use tmux to do window splitting inside of a terminal, and you have maybe different programs. You have like a shell in one window, you have them in another window, etc. With Emacs, you could basically do the same thing, but then you have the power of Emacs as your sort of overall window manager in the terminal. Emacs commands, Emacs key bindings, everything that you're already familiar with. So you don't need a secondary program for that. So in the TTY, in a Geeks installation, using terminal Emacs can be extremely helpful. However, this is a case where you don't have all of your community packages or your standard configuration even installed. So this is why I say that if you end up in situations where you need to use terminal Emacs on a machine that you don't really have full control over, or you can't really install everything that you have on it very easily, or you're not going to use it for a long period of time, like maybe it's kind of a transient usage of a machine where you have a kind of a basic unconfigured Emacs, learning the Emacs key bindings and learning how to use the built-in functionality of Emacs without depending too heavily on community packages that modify the experience a lot is worthwhile. And I can say this with certainty now because I have gone through enough instances of this recently that I was very happy that I started using normal Emacs key bindings and that I'm pretty comfortable with an unconfigured Emacs experience. So installing Geeks is one case where that's useful. Also, like, let's say your desktop environment gets broken. You see that BRB? That BRB thing happens to me all the time. This keyboard goes like crazy with the B key. Broken. And you need to fix it in the TTY. So that's another place where using Emacs in terminal mode could be useful. But generally, you're probably going to have your normal Emacs configuration available on that machine, but you need to make sure that your Emacs configuration is not depending too heavily on graphical Emacs features and can turn off certain things whenever you're using it in terminal mode. Or use Emacs-Q to not load your init file and then just use a plain unconfigured Emacs, which we end up going back to that suggestion that you should learn how to use the default Emacs key bindings and default Emacs functionality so that you can function well under those circumstances. So both those cases are pretty useful. Other things are like maybe like SSHing into a remote machine or container. That ends up being really common, I think, for people who have to do systems administration. Like maybe you have a Linux running in a VM where you're hosting a web server or some other software that is accessed by the internet and you need to go in and do some maintenance on it. Using Emacs there gives you that same kind of benefit where it's kind of like a tmux experience where you SSH in, then you start Emacs, and you can start doing things there. Now, obviously, you could use Tramp for this, and there are certain cases where using Tramp could be better, but I still think that Tramp isn't great in every circumstance or for every use case, and sometimes it's better just to be able to SSH in to a machine and launch Emacs there. For instance, if you're on someone else's machine or even your cell phone, like if you have Termux on your cell phone and you need to SSH into a server, then being able to get into terminal Emacs via your phone over SSH could be pretty useful, I think, because maybe you have an existing session there. You can use the Emacs daemon on the server and then just like reconnect to the daemon using Emacs client to keep some of your state active. Like maybe you've got a shell open there and you kind of go back into it. You're treating it kind of like a screen or tmux session. It's not perfect. You can't treat Emacs with the Emacs daemon exactly like you would treat tmux or screen. But I think that you can get like, let's say 70% of the way there. Because the buffers that you had already opened will still be there in the daemon, even if your client is disconnected. Yeah, pretty much every buffer will be available. It's just a matter of whether you're like reconnecting with a different terminal width or terminal dimensions. Sometimes that can cause issues with buffers, but it's not like a huge issue. So anyway, remote machines for sure. Let's see, what was the other thing? One thing that I've used recently, I won't say why because I don't want people yelling at me. I've been in Windows once or twice, and I have used WSL, like a Debian image in WSL. Using terminal Emacs there can be nice. Now, it is totally possible to use graphical Emacs out of a WSL2 image. You can basically run the Wayland build of Emacs, full graphical Emacs, and it will show up as a window inside of Windows. But you may not want that because there is some kind of cost to running the full graphical application because it's, it's taking some of your GPU render cycles, etc. So maybe what you want instead is to use terminal-based Emacs. So this is another case where you could use a terminal-based Emacs to have your Emacs functionality in Windows via a Linux container or Linux, whatever you want to call it, environment, and get some work done. Maybe you're working on a piece of software that you're trying to compile for Windows, and you want to edit it using Emacs in Linux because Windows Emacs build is, well, I'm not going to use the words I would actually use to describe it, but it is slow, okay? It's not so great, especially if you're using Git. So using Emacs in a WSL environment can be a much better experience, especially if it's in a terminal. Okay, so there's a few things here where, let's see, WSL2 Linux environment in the terminal. So there's a few different cases that I have personally used this year where terminal Emacs has been useful to me. Like I said, it's not a 100% necessary to do it this way, but since Emacs can do it, sometimes it's useful to find ways to apply all of the capabilities that Emacs gives you, because maybe you'll find out that it works better for you in some circumstances. Now, I would not stop using graphical Emacs on my desktop environment and go strictly to terminal. It wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense because there is value to graphical Emacs, like the multiple font faces in the same buffer. I think key bindings are better in some ways inside of graphical Emacs. There's some issues with key bindings in the terminal, which I've personally experienced, and I know that Alternate Vet was saying some things about that in the IRC this morning. So terminal Emacs does lag behind some of the functionality in graphical Emacs aside from just the visual aspects. But I think that sometimes using terminal Emacs in your desktop setup could be useful as a way to train yourself to be fluent in both situations, okay? Fade says, Emacs on the terminal doesn't like my super key remap, which confuses me every time. Yes, certain keys like that aren't gonna work. I noticed that my key map for getting into Magit status, which for me is Control-Alt-semicolon, does not work in the terminal in some cases. So it may depend on your terminal emulator for that to work correctly, or it may depend on what OS you're using. I don't really know like what the circumstances are that cause that, but certain key bindings that you're used to using that you may have set up yourself, or there may be stuff built into Emacs, may not work the same. So it's something to keep in mind, and that is a good reason for you to try kind of training yourself to use terminal Emacs at various times so that you find these rough spots, and then maybe you just decide you're going to change the way that you use Emacs so that it's more fluent in both cases. Ideally, you would try to abandon any weird configurations that you've added that you don't get by default in vanilla Emacs. But that's kind of like the extreme end of the spectrum. You don't have to do that. I kind of like thinking about doing things like this because it's kind of a challenge, and there's value to it. Obviously, I've been saying there's value to it, but sometimes, yeah, sometimes people get bored and they just want to, like, you know, make their brain do stuff. So that's one reason to do it, right? Am I the only person who does stupid things like that? Okay, let me check the chat. Okay. Where are we? I've been talking and I've missed a lot. Ashra says less latency on Twitch versus YouTube. I would kind of like to stream only on Twitch. I've mentioned that before. Because I feel like it's more ephemeral. It's nice having the video recordings and the streams on the YouTube channel, but I don't know. Sometimes it feels better to use Twitch for streaming. Rickard says, I'm mostly here for the rambling. Thank you, Rickard. I appreciate that. I enjoy the rambling. I feel like, you know, we're all just kind of sitting, hanging around in my virtual living room, and I'm just waxing poetic on whatever topics that come to my mind and whatever people inspire me to talk about. So I'm glad that some people like it. Hello to Shom. Zorg says, on the note of Termux, did anyone mention Emacs Android? So Emacs on Android, there's actually a build of real Emacs for Android. It's not perfect. I think it needs some affordances for mobile use. I don't know if they're working on that, but there really needs to be some extra stuff added to make it easier to use Emacs on mobile. You can depend on a keyboard, a custom keyboard in Android to make it easier to hit Emacs key bindings, but I kind of feel like you should be able to use a normal text completing keyboard without extra buttons for Control, Alt, Escape, etc. To use graphical Emacs on Android. If that was the case, I think it would be much, much more useful. Like, for instance, if there was a little, like, a button that you could press, maybe a radial menu that you could hit certain commands that you could configure yourself, that might really help out a lot. Maybe also if there was like a joystick, let's say, that you could use to move the cursor around, things of that nature. I think there needs to be some kind of affordances to make Emacs easier to use on Android. If that were ever added, I think that it would be a really powerful use case for Emacs on Android. Right now, the best experience so far is Termux. Using Emacs in terminal in Termux because it's full-on Emacs, and the Termux itself gives you extra buttons over your keyboard for Control, Alt, etc. So it helps you out a little bit there. But the full Android build of Emacs does not work so well for that. Hopefully, people are doing something for this because I would love to use full Emacs on the phone. Let's see. Einar says, hello Einar, says you can log out from TTY Emacs, open Sway, and log into the same session with Emacs client. That's pretty cool, actually. That's a good point. Leonix says Emacs Persp mode plus tabs emulates Tmux very well in Emacs GUI. With TUI, you won't need Persp mode since Control X 5.2 does a separation of windows. Fade says Tramp is awesome. Tramp is pretty good. Let's see. Cal says Emacs daemon in a background of Tmux. All right, let's see. Fade says we had a visitor to System Correctness this week that was asking how to configure Doom Emacs site-wide on his system. I don't really know why you would want to do that. And I think that was the same answer that he got from other people in the chat. Peter says the ultimate hacker's keyboard has a track point option. Gina from Octoprint is a happy user. Okay. Haven't heard of that one. Pi says, I just want to be off Windows. Yes, I agree. I have not been using Windows very much over the last few years, and I'm thankful for that. Even less now. Ashra says, just coming back from WSL2, I dragged Ashra's back just for a comment. You get so much performance by using Emacs in a WSL terminal compared to either graphical Emacs or Emacs native. Magic just goes brr compared to Emacs on Windows. Yes, 100%. It feels like Emacs in the terminal there in WSL2, for sure. And Leonic says, and if you're a Vimmer wanting to try Emacs, you're better with Emacs-NW. Yeah, 100%. We will be talking about that when I finally get to it. Alternate Ed says, foot and X terms should support lots of those keys. I'm going to ask for ideas on which terminal emulator to try in just a moment. Benoit says, according to System Crafter's, according to System Crafter Manifesto Rule 42, I wonder why we picked that number. You shall do stupid things regularly in order to create chaos and learn what you should have done. Yeah, it actually is a pretty good rule. To maximize your learning opportunities, do stupid things that force you to dig yourself out of a hole, which is basically my entire computing experience. I just keep doing stupid stuff, making huge mistakes, and then figuring out how to cope with it. I don't really learn very much though. Or let me say this. I learn things, but I don't learn from my mistakes to not do that thing again. Like for instance, I should really be having backups, like automated backups. And every time something goes kind of catastrophically wrong with the computer, I'm like, damn, I really need some backups. But then I end up finding a way to deal with the problem and I just kind of move on from it and I never get the backups, the automated backups going. So there are things I learn, but I never learn my lesson, okay? I don't know if other people have experienced this kind of thing before. Hello to Boo. Zork says, there are two keyboard apps, Unexpected and Hacker Keyboard. I've used both of those. And the problem I have is that I'm really dependent on text autocompletion to type without having typos constantly because it's really difficult to type on a phone. And all of these hacker keyboards don't have really good text completion. Now, I'm currently using the Futo keyboard. If you don't know about this, Futo is a... What would you call it? I mean, we'll look at this first, but Futo is futo.org. Some kind of organization for developing useful tools for humanity, let's say. I think that Louis Rossmann has something to do with this. Okay, someone named Aaron Wolf. I've heard that Louis Rossmann has something to do with this also. Maybe he invested in it. I don't know. Point being, this is supposed to be like kind of for the public good in a way. And this Futo keyboard is an Android keyboard, which is kind of like SwiftKey. If you've ever used SwiftKey before, they're one of the better keyboards. But it doesn't train external stuff using the things that you type. Like for instance, if you use SwiftKey or other kind of commercial, I could say commercial in quotes because you don't pay for them, but still, you know, your data is being used somehow. Keyboards for Android, they're very nice. They help you out a lot, but they're also, you know, taking analytics about things you're typing. And that might make you feel a little uncomfortable because all your private conversations on your phone or emails you're writing or things you're searching for on weird websites now are, you know, going somewhere else. So this Futo keyboard actually keeps it all on your phone because it's using a local model for suggestions. And I think it does learn from you, but the model is on your phone and you can get that model off to move to another phone if you ever have to migrate. So I feel like this is like the right way to go for a keyboard that would be useful for a general user, but maybe they could add some extensions for kind of hacker keyboard type stuff where they have arrow keys and other common buttons. Maybe it already has that. I just haven't really dug into the configuration too much. But what I will say is that the completions, the suggestions are not very good sometimes. It makes some really weird choices. And I end up with a lot of typos compared to using SwiftKey. But I have not gone back to SwiftKey because I really don't want to use it anymore. So that's a little pointer. Alternate Vet says, pity that tabs aren't clickable in terminal Emacs. If terminal support is turned on in the, if mouse support is turned on in the terminal, does it not work? Alternate Vet says Foot will be the best option for Emacs and Terminal. Yeah, that Foot was my first choice. Alternate Vet said, I tried Alacrity, Kitty, WesTerm, GNOME Terminal, Console, and Foot gives the best results. Well, that's cool. If you don't know about Foot, it actually was written by an Emacs user. Maybe that's why Emacs works well inside of Foot. But DNKL is an Emacs user. Pretty sure about that. I follow DNKL on Fediverse. The DNKL also wrote Fuzzle, which I use daily. What else did DNKL write that I use? That seems to be it. Is that a fork or is that the... Wait a second. Is that a fork? No, that's their own thing. So anyway, Foot's a nice choice. Glenn says, Guile scheme scripts to automate your backup tasks. Yes, that's a callback to the conversation earlier today. Maybe. I mean, all it will just do is maybe shell out to rsync. Boo says, as far as I know, Rossman is employed by them. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Trev says, I'm using Toe Terminal. You should write that, Trev. You should come up with your own terminal called Toe. Okay, so AlterVed's using Xterm mouse mode and it doesn't work. Okay. Let me check the YouTube chat. I'm missing some things probably. Let's see. Someone in the chat, I'm sorry, I can't read the script on the name. Says, I watched the DT channel. He was using a nice terminal with Emacs. That's cool. I don't really follow his videos. Hey, Bill. Nice to see you. Hello to Heath and Ed and Dominic. I'm seeing people on the YouTube side now for the first time. B Hall. Yes, I go back and watch the stream recording sometimes. Lots of useful info. Yeah, that's great. Juicealicious says, I'm strictly a terminal user coming from NeoVim. Emacs in terminal is slow enough for me as it is. Graphical Emacs is pretty unbearably laggy with eglot plus treesitter plus big C++ files. Yeah, that's something that you don't really experience. There are certain things that will make Emacs slow, and apparently I don't really do enough of those things to notice it, but for some people, Emacs does end up being slow. Hello to Paul. Haven't seen you in a while, Paul. And to Mark as well. Haven't seen you in a while, Mark, or Trip. Seen a lot of familiar names here today. Missed a lot of stuff in the chat. Okay. Leonic says, Kitty for me is best. Debian and macOS, both with the same config. Has all the new images on terminal protocol supported by apps like Yazi. I don't know. Like, I don't really know if I need images in the terminal, but that's just me. Bate says, I haven't heard about Emacs being slow too much since the 90s. Well, probably you're writing common Lisp all day and you're not having language server slowness issues. Trev says, if Emacs is slow, reminder to use native comp helped a lot with my bloat projects plus eglot. Yeah, that's maybe another reason why I haven't noticed slowness with Emacs. I've been using native comp since 2021. Okay. So, what else were we talking about here? So we talked about places where you might want to do this. How to minimally configure Emacs to be slightly nicer to use in a terminal. Emacs versus Tmux. I think we kind of talked about that. Because I think that you can, if you use Emacs daemon or Emacs in server mode, then it should be possible to resume an Emacs session after you close Emacs client, depending on how you start it up. It's not going to be as good as Tmux in certain ways, but if you are an experienced Emacs user, then I think that you will probably understand well enough how to leverage it to be something like Tmux in a setting like this. So it's probably good enough. INR says Emacs server plus Emacs client plus use package plus native comp, not slow. Well, yeah, definitely not startup time. I mean, you won't have startup time problems. I think that startup time shouldn't really be an issue because you're not likely to be starting up Emacs from... Okay, I'm not going to say Emacs from scratch. You're not likely to be starting up Emacs starting it over again for every file that you want to open at the terminal, like you might do with Vim or VI. So startup time isn't as big of a concern, but some judicious editing to your configuration and setting up use package correctly will ameliorate a lot of the startup time issues. Also, not using so many packages will help with that too. I think there's definitely a benefit to reducing the amount of third-party packages that you depend on. Now, I'm not saying use none. I'm just saying, like, use the ones that are giving you the most value, that make your life easier or make your work a lot faster. For me, that would be Vertigo and Consult. And kind of to an extent, Marginalia and Orderless. Most other things I could probably live without. Things that are not built in, I mean. Leonic says, just remember, people, that the Emacs server will hang if something hangs, the non-multi-threaded stuff. Yep. But I don't really have a lot of problems with Emacs hanging. KPG says, is it possible to get less than 400 millisecond startup time? Well, I don't know, but I don't really see why you would need it. I don't see why people obsess over startup time so much, unless you're literally restarting Emacs constantly. Why does startup time matter so much? If your Emacs takes like a minute to start, yeah, okay, that's annoying. But if it takes like 10 seconds to start, who cares? Because you're gonna be using it for like the next 3 days. It's not gonna get closed. Do you restart your computer 5 times a day? Like, who is starting Emacs so many times that their startup time matters? I'm not judging anybody. I'm from my own experience, I will be in a computer session for weeks in Geeks, like in a Geeks machine where I'm not restarting it to go to like a Windows partition or whatever. I'm in that same session for a long time, and Emacs is open the whole time. I don't restart it, so I don't really know why the startup time really matters so much. Sometimes people get obsessed with things have to be perfect, they have to be right, but they don't have to be, okay? Like the things that really don't matter, like think critically about what it is that actually matters to you in your life. How many times do you start Emacs? How much time does it waste for you? If it's 10 seconds per day, who cares? Like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Bate says, I start Emacs once a day because I'm tracking the master branch and I build it every day. Well, that's kind of ballsy. Because you can get any kind of bug at any time. But I guess at this point, Emacs is fairly stable. But I don't know that I would want to have master updated every day. Because you're really kind of chasing whatever funky stuff is going on at any given time. Excuse me. I will say, on the other hand, I'm happy to hear from anyone if they have a legitimate reason why they have to worry about Emacs startup time constantly, because I've never personally seen a reason for that. Let's see. Hello to Peter and to Lon at Theopekli. Sorry, folks. I'm still getting over another cold. Yet another cold. Theopekli says, I'm never removing Rainbow Kitty. You mean Nyan mode? I mean, sure. You know, sometimes we got to have a little bit of levity in life to make the days go by a little bit more smoothly. And if you like to have a little Nyan cat in your mode line, I'm not going to hold it against you. I mean, it's like having an emotional support animal on an airplane or inside of the mall. Just helps with the anxiety of impending doom from our modern society. Yeah, I took it there. Okay. Okay. So, using in Termux. Yeah, as far as using Emacs and Termux, did I mention it here? Termux on Android. Probably the best Emacs experience on mobile right now. Okay. Using Emacs as your login shell, kinda. If you had a machine where you didn't have a graphical environment, you could conceivably set Emacs to be launched automatically when you log in. Now, maybe saying it being your login shell is kind of the wrong way to mention it, or wrong way to put it. Maybe having it be in your bash RC or your bash profile, whenever you actually log in to your user account, if it automatically starts Emacs up and that's kind of your environment, that actually would make sense. So let's say Emacs has the program that gets launched automatically on TTY login, because you get the benefits of the sort of Tmux-like experience, because Emacs is a window manager basically, and you can do a lot of stuff in there. Like for instance, using DRED, you can't do things like DRED very easily in the terminal without another program. So you might as well just be in Emacs, use DRED, use ANSI term or EAT or whatever else, eShell even, and have better functionality in a terminal experience than just being in a shell. Because you're probably just going to end up launching Emacs anyway. So why not just have it launched directly into Emacs when you log in, if it's not for a graphical environment. Peter says, I like emotional support ligatures in my editor. Who was talking about ligatures today? Which terminal emulator supports ligatures? Let's see. Saladin says, I configured my Emacs using your video. Well, that's great. That's awesome to hear. Nuke says, if I use Emacs as my login shell, I might try living inside the console too without any GUI. That would definitely be fun to try out. I've also considered that, but if you need to use a web browser, then that's where everything falls apart, and you probably need to use a web browser. So yeah, it's not really something that is feasible for day-to-day use, because most websites are not going to work in Lynx or EWW or any other kind of terminal-based web browser, because they don't have JavaScript support. But for certain circumstances, like if you're doing application development, or not application development, like back-end development, and all you need is to use your editor and start up a server, and then maybe use a tool to make requests to that API endpoint or something, there's no reason why you couldn't just do that all in a TTY. But this is kind of limited. Limited applications. Bruno says, Restream? My whole life is a lie. What do you mean? I'm using Restream, but I'm not sure what you mean. Alternate Vet says, Trev likes ligatures and uses kitty. Okay. Call them liggies, though. That doesn't sound right, man. We can't be, coming out with Zoomer slang in here. I gotta get my liggies while I eat my nuggies, yo. I'm imagining that in my head with the accent and speech patterns of Jesse from Breaking Bad, because I've been watching Breaking Bad. Okay. So you're seeing the Restream bot. Now I understand. Okay. So the Restream bot is basically just bridging chat from Twitch over to YouTube. Okay. The chat that's on the screen in the video is actually IRC though. So if you want to be on the screen with your chat, you should come to irc.libra.chat and go to the systemcrafters-live room. Or just go to systemcrafters.net/live, and there's an embedded chat thing there. All right, where are we? Okay, 7:14. We got 45 minutes left to ramble some more. Dave says, chicken nuggies are so skibidi, bruh. Oh, God. Don't clip that. Ideally, you, of course, kitty when programming in Chicken Scheme. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would definitely use that. Oh, yeah, okay. So Boo says KMSCon is really nice for using a TTY directly with good font support. It has a Geek service as well. That's true. I haven't really used it. Geeks KMSCon. Excuse me. Terminal emulator based on Linux's kernel mode setting. It can replace the in-kernel virtual terminal implementation load with a user space console. Compared to the Linux console, KMSCon provides enhanced features including XKB compatible internationalized keyboard support, UTF-8 input font support. Does it do emojis? Because I need emojis. Like, I can't really communicate with another human being without emojis. Hardware accelerated rendering, multi-seat support, replacement for Min-Getty, and more. That's kind of cool. Boo, have you used it? What do you use it for? Because it sounds kind of interesting. Maybe you told me about this at some point in the past. I remember someone mentioning it to me. All right. Yo, Mr. White. I was laughing at what Trev said. Yes, I've been watching that. It's in my head. All right. So, emojis and liggies. Emojis. We're getting off track. So, let me get some basic configuration stuff going here. So, I'm going to go into my projects code, Emacs terminal folder, init.el. Okay. Let's see. We're going to try loading up Foot. I don't have Foot installed, so we're going to do this the old-fashioned way, which is not really old-fashioned. It's new-fashioned, but whatever. Geeks shell foot -- foot. We'll see how long it takes to install that. Robin says, if an editor can't support a King's Greek typeface, then why use it? Let me zoom in on this a little bit because it seems a little bit small. That's probably big enough. So I'm going to use Emacs -q-nw. No. We got init.el started up here, right? It's empty. That's fine. So we're going to use Emacs --init directory dot. I think that should work, right? -nw. All right. So obviously, first of all, I want to get rid of a couple things here. I don't really need a menu. So menu bar mode -1. There's like the inhibit welcome. Where is the welcome thing? Welcome. I've forgotten what the. I mean, this is really important stuff. Like inhibiting the welcome message. Obviously, this needs to be done. What is it called? Core package settings. Who the hell knows? I kind of like don't like the fact that I set up my Emacs in modules anymore because now I forget where I put things. It's got to be in here somewhere, right? Menu bar mode. All right, cool. Fill column. There's a setting for that somewhere, but maybe I don't really care. There it is, Robin. Startup screen, inhibit startup screen. Inhibit. Yeah. Inhibit startup message. There we go. Let's do that. So I just want to get rid of some stuff that I don't really need. But we're not going to do too much because I don't want to overdo it. So let's get out of here. We'll go back into it. All right, so now we're in a scratch buffer. I like that as a starting point because it's just cleaner. I don't have stuff that I don't really need to see. You still have everything you need, you know, meta X and everything else. Let's see, control. Okay, so in Foot, you can do control, semicolon, control, alt, semicolon. So my normal stuff would actually work there, which is good. But those kind of bindings I'm trying not to use. So let's try to move on without that. Now, the one thing I don't like too much about Emacs out of the box is that the completions aren't so good because you kind of have to, you know, tab complete stuff. So like org dash. I mean, it's okay. It's not terrible. I think you can cycle through to some degree, maybe. Meta up, down to move point between completions. That's not really doing what... Oh, meta up, down. Okay. Okay, yeah. So you can do that. That's not too bad. In fact, I would prefer not to mess with the mode line or the mini buffer too much. But there are some things that could be kind of nice for it. For instance, and let's just open up init.el here and do it here instead. It's vertical. Really? Is it iComplete vertical? iComplete vertical mode, yeah. And what version of Emacs is this? Emacs version. Emacs 30, okay. So should be out. When is Emacs 30 coming out? I thought it was coming out sooner than now. Should be soon, right? All right, alternate vet has some suggestions here. Meta up and down. Yeah, see, because I don't use the normal like inbox completion stuff, I forget about things like meta up and down. However, I personally don't like having to reach for the arrow keys. I would rather just use meta N and P. But I guess they're already bound to something else in that case. I complete vertical mode. So Control Alt I, if you don't know about that binding, Control Alt I will do in buffer completions for at point. And apparently meta up and down will let you select those. So that's kind of a nice thing. So I complete vertical mode is here. There's also the Fido. Whoa, I didn't actually complete that. Oh, meta return to selected. Okay. I don't like that so much, but maybe that's okay. All right, so I complete vertical mode 1. If I execute that, then if I use, yeah, so you get something more like Vertigo. And I think that by itself could be kind of nice, but you still need to change the completion styles a little bit to make it a bit better, because otherwise you can't put space in there. You can't really like do fuzzy matching. And for the sake of efficiency, fuzzy matching can be really useful. I think there's something for completion styles. Completion styles. We can already see that this is getting better. Okay. Can I press enter on completion style? Okay, so it doesn't automatically complete when I press enter. That's fine. I can get used to that. Available styles are in completion styles A list. Meta O is undefined. So my usual binding for other window is not here. I think there is Control X O. Okay, so that works. Also, I normally use console line for searching, but you have to use normal iSearch in an unconfigured Emacs, which is fine. iSearch completion styles, press enter. So you can still get around pretty well with the normal stuff. So completion styles, order, okay, I can't use order list because it's not default. There's something else though. Flex. It's nice to have strings here to explain the different styles as well. So flex, when completing foo bar where underscore, it will consider all completions candidates matching the glob. Okay, so if there's hyphens or underscores, it will do some amount of fuzzy matching. So we could probably try to set completion styles to that. Control X O, set Q, completion styles, sent, no. There we go. And is that a list? I'm trying to use the mouse in here, and it's not following the, let's see, mouse focus. Mouse wheel follow mouse. That would probably be useful, but maybe let's not configure things like that. We need something a bit more minimal, let's say. We're going to try to do this in the editors so we can kind of test out what we're doing as we go. So completion styles A list is the list of options. If I were to go back, can I go back to the previous one? Control HV completion styles. So it is, yeah, we could probably just insert flex at the beginning. So can I just push? It's push, right? I'm gonna turn on LDoc mode. So push, are you gonna give me help? Push new element place. Okay, so I'm gonna push flex onto completion styles. All right, so that pushes it at the beginning of the list. Now if I do org, well, it doesn't really help, does it? Present. Okay, so you don't need to type a hyphen. You can do other things like org, tangle, org BATA. Nah, this doesn't work, does it? Babel. Where are we with org QLV? Okay, so that does do some fuzzy matching. If you can get used to not putting spaces between the things you're trying to match. I don't think it does it out of order though. So QLVO doesn't work. So in Emacs, a lot of times what I'll do MetaX, QLV org. So you could put in the parts of the word out of order. This is what orderless is doing. It makes it so you don't have to have the exact same order as the text whenever you're putting your queries. So that is a benefit of it. But if you can get used to not having to depend on the ordering being correct, then you can use flex instead to get something similar, I believe. KBG says, are you using set opt mode line compact long? What does that do? So alternate vet had a couple suggestions. Set opt mode line end spaces nil. What is that? Mode line end spaces. Well, let's try it and see, because I haven't seen this before. Set opt mode line end spaces nil. Oops. Okay, so it just takes all the hyphens off the bottom. That's nice. I mean, it's a graphical, or let's say an aesthetic improvement, but not a whole huge deal to me. The next one is kind of interesting from a graphical perspective, or a visual perspective. Set display table slot standard display table. Can you complete that for me, please? Meta up. Okay, there we go. And vertical border. Make glyph code. I'm reading this straight from the IRC, folks. Those of you who are curious about this, I'm gonna have to copy and paste this pipe character because I don't have that over here. Whoops. Gonna do like a little shift insert. Yeah, there we go. And what that did is make this vertical line between the windows be more of a contiguous line, which looks a little bit better. That's kind of nice. So we'll call this like unnecessary visual improvements. Unnecessary from the sense that you don't need that to have a good terminal Emacs experience, but you might want it if you're going to use it more frequently. What else? There's also some suggestions from Leonix and his own kind of Emacs configuration. We might take a look at that later. Morgan, hello Morgan, says, I think there are some issues when trying to use flex completion everywhere, but if you want to try that out, it's probably easier to use Fido vertical mode instead. Yeah, so that was what I was thinking about a minute ago. I don't really know what the difference is between those two because Fido did feel different to me. I don't know why. Morgan, do you have like kind of a read on why Fido is different? Obviously, it's just another case where people are just stuffing a lot of stuff inside of Emacs so that you can use it if you want to. Minas Mezar is pointing at initial buffer choice as the variable to use to open various things by default in Emacs, which is cool. I have used that for things before. Trip says, the best keyboard of all time is the Model M13. It's a black Model M with a track point. Really? Is that like an IBM Model M keyboard? Zerka, hey Zerka says, what window manager is this? Well, I'm using Sway as the window manager. Yeah. Tim says, I think he uses Sway. Yeah, I use Sway. Gerard says, probably EXWM. No, I haven't been using EXWM in quite a while. Gerard also says, I'll have to rewatch this, spending so much time setting things up with mainly your videos as documentation. That's cool. Pi says, can you do that for the horizontal line above, below the mode line? We don't really have that as an issue, do we? After the other suggestion by alternate vet for the mode line end spaces, I think that we got rid of a lot of the other weird stuff. So this looks pretty good to me. The other thing I would do is set one of the Modus themes potentially, or just turn on one of the Modus themes, but you need to have a good terminal emulator and environment variables set up correctly so that the colors come through. So let's try that actually. Oh, would you stop? What did I just do? Load theme, Modus Vivendi. What other Modus themes do we have in here? Does it complete it for me? Modus Vivendi Tinted. See, that looks pretty cool. I think that may actually be 256 color because it's got some pretty nice color to it. So that's kind of good already. We could do that. Load theme, modus, Vivendi, tinted, true, right? So that doesn't ask you if you want to use it. Morgan says, Fido tries to modify iComplete to emulate from iDo, though I don't think it does a great job of it. If you want to customize everything, it's probably better to use iComplete and manually configure everything. Yeah, I did have, I think it must have been 2019. I actually used vertical iComplete or iComplete vertical mode for a while as a replacement to Ivy, and I had a lot of stuff configured on it, and it was pretty good. I don't know why I stopped using it though. I think there must have been some weird stuff that has probably been fixed since then, but iComplete vertical mode is kind of nice. Morgan says, iDo has its own implementation of flex matching that you can turn on that doesn't require modifying completion styles because it is a general completion framework. Alternate Vet says, turn on fly make mode to see squiggly lines in color. So fly make mode. So there's some nice colors there, isn't it? Things just pop out a lot more. So fly make mode, alt enter. Can't just like tab complete that. Why can't I press enter on that? Pick it. See, that's what I don't like about the default completion system is that the tab completion to select one of the options by default is not very good. Let me see. Oh yeah, we got squiggly lines here, which is kind of nice. I mean, it's starting to look more like an IDE kind of setup, honestly. Alternate Vet says it was pretty surprising for me to see that Foot supports that. It is cool, that's for sure. What is IRC chat? How can I join? Just go to systemcrafters.net/live, and there's a embedded IRC client there. Ernest says, I like to pair terminal Emacs with a quick startup time plus tmux. Yeah, I think that for best results, sometimes putting Emacs in tmux or screen could be good for remote usage. So I don't think that using Emacs completely precludes the use of tmux when used together, but I think that in a lot of cases you don't really need tmux. It's sort of just a matter of choice. All right, so I mean already looks pretty good. I think it's because Foot automatically is supporting at least 256 color, maybe true color. I'm not exactly sure which is which, 32-bit color. But I don't know, looks pretty good to me. Let me open up a full configuration. So I want to go to my .files folder. Excuse me. I really don't like that I have to be more explicit about this. I feel like there's a variable for that. Is there not a variable for iComplete to select the first item? There's some variable to configure that for sure. Show matches on no input. It can't be that. Hide common prefix. Ah, okay. Maybe someone remembers, but maybe Fido vertical mode is better. Oh, Control J, is that really it? Okay. That does make sense. It's kind of like return. Let's go try that one more time then. Control H, F, org something. Control J. Okay, so that's it. Thank you, Morgan, for reminding me. Morgan says how iComplete and Fido handle this is reversed. That is annoying, but it's something you can get used to. If you think about it, like, if you want a slightly better mini buffer experience, bare minimum, you can just turn on iComplete vertical mode and fumble your way through completions. Like if you don't have flex completion style turned on, if you really didn't even want to edit an init.el, like a scratch init.el, just something that you just type in by hand, you might be able to go into the configuration system and do it graphically, or clickily, let's say, ouch. So customize. Customize. Search for completion. Search for completion styles. All right, completion styles. Insert, delete. Insert. Value menu. Okay, so you can just do it like this. If you really wanted to do something lazy, you can just turn on flex like that. Because we already put flex in the configuration file, but you could add it this way, I think, if you wanted to. It's one option. KJ says, how would you use Tmux plus Emacs together? You would just launch Tmux and then launch Emacs inside of it. And you're really just using it as a way to remember the running session. You probably wouldn't do window splitting inside of Tmux unless you wanted to run a terminal application that didn't work so well inside of ANSI term and Emacs, which there are many. So Tmux could be an option for that. All right. Robin says, it's impossible to set the hard status line from terminal Emacs so screen still has a function. Hopefully someone will correct this. Waste a whole line on deck VT420. Well, I don't know anything about that. But I believe you, Robin, because you're kind of super genius. So whatever you say, you could probably just say some total nonsense. I would believe you. Control H for delete. That's the way it should be, right? Is it working here? No. Goes to help. I gotta say though, this theme looks pretty good. I mean, so far, like the visual appearance of this is not bad. If you could get used to using terminal Emacs with a very minimal configuration, I mean, you could probably be pretty happy with it. Let's check out Dired, Control X, Control J. I mean, even Dired is not so bad. See, I mean, it's good, right? It's Dired. There's nothing wrong with all that. Still have a lot of the same stuff you expect to see. Fade says modern Emacs steals the binding for help. Yeah, that's true. What else do we want to see in this? I guess let me just write down how much time we have left. Yeah, I got about 20 minutes. What have we seen so far as being problems? Number one is picking completion results is a little annoying. Maybe we should try Fido vertical mode. In fact, let's just turn this off. iComplete vertical mode. Okay, so Control J makes that easier, okay? But now let's do Fido vertical mode. All right, so that's enabled now. Vert. I'm just trying to see if we could do sort of out of order completions on this. Can't do it. But you can do partial completions. I don't know if that's because I do have completion styles set. Okay, alternate vet says check the snippet from Leonix. All right, well, let me just pull that up. I'll put that in the show notes too, actually. So let me just go to my org file, check out Leonix configuration 2. Okay. Whoa, what just happened? Okay, iComplete. Show matches on no input true. Yeah, this looks like some of the stuff that I had. I wish I could find that again. It'd be nice if you could search in the history on GitHub, because I could find it in my doc files folder long ago. Okay, forward completions, backward completions. I see these. These do make sense using Control P, Control N, Control P to cycle through completions, but does kind of work already, doesn't it? Return is force complete and exit, which is more what you would expect. Compute delay, hide common prefix. What does with completion tables do? Whoops, let's do it here. iComplete with completion tables. Huh? Specialized completion tables with which iComplete should operate. If it's true, iComplete operates on all tables. Who the hell knows? Zerica says you use Denote or org-roam. I use Denote frequently. Org-roam, I just have my org-roam files there because there's information in there that I haven't moved over yet to to Denote. So if I had done that, I would not be using org-roam at all, and I almost never use it. Not because it's not good, because Denote gives me other value. Autocomplete buffer true. Fido mode -1. Okay. Yeah, I did notice that there's some weird stuff that happens sometimes when you enable iComplete mode and then disable it. Somehow it like turns on other things. It's kind of strange how that works. All right, back to business here. So we're looking at some of this stuff. I don't know if I'm going to put all of this because I'm trying to minimize the things that I'm doing. So did I turn on the Fido thing? Fido vertical mode. Okay. Yeah, I press enter and it works. So it's true. What else is different in this Fido vertical mode? I also want to write down the things I need to do differently. So use Control X O for other window instead of MO, because that's the way that I have it bound. Another thing I would do is try to get more used to using iBuffer, because iBuffer has a lot of value. I don't know if you really use iBuffer at all. It's kind of like Zered for buffers in a way, because you can do bulk actions on them. So it can be pretty useful. And yeah, I think it would be pretty useful, but I haven't really put a lot of time into it, to be honest. Gun says, is there a roam to denote converter? There is one. I haven't used it yet, but I found one. All right. So I feel like Fido vertical mode is pretty good. I don't know what the downsides of using it are, though. Gun says, I use control square bracket O instead of meta O. Control square bracket? What does that do? Control square bracket O. Oh, okay. So you use that instead of meta? Gotcha. It's the same, isn't it? Yeah, the FlyMake is making those. So Emacs Lisp editing enhancements. Let's see. Unnecessary. So we could say, was this FlyMake mode? What was it you told me before? Can I look in the history? FlyMake? No, not there, is it? Yeah, FlyMake mode. Plain old FlyMake mode. FlyMake mode 1. And also LDoc mode, which... Is it actually working? Because I haven't seen anything come up in the mini buffer yet. Have I? Oh, okay. It's coming up now. You definitely need that for some Emacs Lisp editing. Let's just do this, though. I'm going to draw a line here. All right. So, I don't know. Can I put this back to default? Let's go to customize. And do it that way. I'm going to delete flex. Whoops. All right, so we got it back to normal. I'm going to apply it. I'm not going to save it. I don't really care. Kill that buffer. All right, so now I'm going to go back in here again. Org BA FI. Okay, so it does still work with the Fido mode. Harsh, what did I say? The unnecessary stuff? No, alternate ved. if I were to actually make an effort at using Emacs in the terminal with a minimal configuration, I would definitely turn these things on because it looks way better, in my opinion. They are necessary for quality of life, but not necessary for using things in the terminal. So FIDO vertical mode might be a better choice to get you something that is just there out of box. You don't need the flex completion styles. I might put that as an alternative. Alternatively, use this. Okay. Leonic says, I think it's global LDoc mode if you want to have it everywhere. You're probably right. Thank you for correcting that. Global LDoc mode. All right, so let's turn that on. Boom. What about fly make mode? Do you need to do that also? Global fly check mode, not really the same. The mode function should tell us if it's global. Shouldn't it? Nope. Yeah. So yeah, if I were using a minimal configuration, I would not use consult line. I've gotten so used to consult line for various reasons. Like where was I? Yeah, the backup files thing is annoying, but I wouldn't worry about that so much if I needed a really minimal configuration. Alternate Vet says, I need to write a minimal Emacs configuration for myself that uses only built-in stuff. Yeah, that's kind of one thing I want to do and try it for a while and see what things I don't need. Because I use, excuse me, kind of the Vertigo stack as a crutch. But there are some things in Vertigo that can be super useful sometimes. And I don't mean Vertigo, I mean Embark specifically. I don't know if Embark can use the iComplete stuff. If you can use Embark without Vertigo, which in theory you should be able to, then you may still be able to get some of the benefit of Embark itself without having to use Vertigo. And maybe Consult. Thing is, you need to be able to use ripgrep. I use Consult ripgrep constantly, and it's pretty useful. Yeah, Embark is helpful. Like I'm scratching the surface on what it can do, but there's certain things it does that, like exporting mini buffer result to buffer, things like that. But then again, it could just be that I'm doing things wrong. I know that Prot has used the normal completion system to some degree to get Embark-like functionality. He had his MCT package for a while that I think did that, but I don't know. Fade says, I mean, I have it, but I don't know when, why to use it. I have a stream on that. Maybe I could do another, like an actual video at some point, because there is some useful stuff. I was showing Mike some of it recently. All right. Gun says, if you can remember the commands, yeah. If you just use, excuse me, if you just use Embark Act, then you have all of the stuff you need there for the most part. But then you have to remember what stuff is useful inside of Embark to remind yourself to actually use it. All right, so I guess the question right now is, would I use this as is in a terminal setup? I would, for sure. Like, I mean, so far it's not too bad. I could get used to everything. Like the normal editing key bindings, I'm already used to. That's no problem. Buffer switching, Control XB. I mean, if you have a better completion engine, then it's not so bad. Like, that's really not that bad. IB, iBuffer, going there, I could live with that easy. So I think if I were to use FIDO vertical mode and the normal bindings for switching buffers, I have my own custom binding for switching buffers, which is Control-Alt-J. And if you're wondering why that I picked that, is because, you know, with evil bindings, I was trying to put as much stuff on the home row as possible. And one thing I do extremely frequently is switch buffers. And J is like right under my index finger. So Control-Alt-J, bam, and it just gives me the buffer list. Control XB is kind of 2 key presses separately. Xterm mouse mode. Let's see. I mean, that's not right though, is it? Let's see. Control X2. No. Control X3. Okay, so that is actually working correctly the way that it's supposed to. And switching by clicking also is working. So I would call that another unnecessary improvement, but a quality of life improvement. So Xterm, where was it? Xterm mouse mode. Moud mode. Make the infernal rodent work. Why aren't you complaining? Mouse. It's that time, folks. Oh, yes. Gunn says, if you hadn't used it in a while, you may forget the binding. Well, in a lot of cases like Avi or Embark, I will forget to use it because I almost never use it. And then if you don't remember to use it, then how are you going to remember to use it? I don't know. Xterm mouse. That's right. We invented something new today. GCS says, what do you think about SHA fly keys? I have not tried them. I did like Ergo Emacs at some point in the past, which also I think was done by SHA at the beginning. Does it work with a ThinkPad track point mice? Which, the Xterm mouse mode? Yes, because that's what I'm using right now. This is me with a track point. Also, can I I can resize windows and everything too, which is really cool. That's excellent. I mean, what more do you need than that? And then if I could put transparency in the terminal, then you know, I could probably replicate some of the functionality that I get with graphical Emacs. So maybe one day you'll see me using something that looks like my normal graphical Emacs configuration, but it will be terminal Emacs. Zorg says, nobody get annoyed by those tilde files? Yes, of course. I get very annoyed by those files and I turn them off. But, like I said, we're doing minimal tweaks to improve the overall experience for this. And I think that these 3 lines, at least for me, get a lot of the way there. Let me make sure that I've set it up right, though. So far, so good. Init.el. And does the fly check thing show up? Fly make? Not yet. Yeah, okay, so at least the visuals are right. Org babel, yeah, okay, so that worked. Is right click possible? Nope, I just deleted a whole bunch of stuff in my buffer. So it doesn't look possible, but there's also the context menu open, which will give you a context menu inside the buffer, if that's what you're asking about, which could be kind of interesting, actually. Is that bound to something by default? Yeah, so super, is that super F10? What does F10 do? Super F10, nope. Oh, shift F10. Super is the lowercase s. Shift is the uppercase s. All right, so it should be on a hook. You're right. I think that's what I was thinking, Morgan. Robin says, I like tilde files. Brainwashed by too much, excuse me, too much time with ITS and Lisp emulators. Control right click. Ah, okay. That's nice, actually, if you can get the whole global menu. Cool. All right, so add hook, Emacs Lisp mode, let's say, fly make mode. Let's just double check the value of this. Does LDOT give me that? No. Fly make mode. Okay, so normal mode, let's just restart. You didn't execute the hooks? Thank you. Save and kill. init.el. The hell? What did I do wrong? Oh, this mode hook. Is that right? My mistake. Normal mode. Boom. Okay. If you didn't know what normal mode is, normal mode basically just resets the current major mode. Choose the major mode for this buffer automatically. So if you change a configuration related to the current buffer, excuse me, normal mode will reactivate those things. Thank you, Morgan. I made stupid mistakes. All right, so we got about 5 minutes. Anything else? I mean, I feel like I'm pretty happy with this, even though it's super, super minimal. But the whole point is I'm actually trying to use the built-in Emacs functionality. Like, let's say ANSI term for a shell, like to do the shell inside the terminal environment, basically. Use package got to me. Yes, it did. That's why people say you should turn that thing off. I forgot. Dired, obviously, because it's super useful. You probably need to configure it a little bit if you're going to use it more often, but you know, having it there is super nice to have. MetaX compile, all the project package stuff, like all the stuff that you really need, I think is there, dude. Like, yeah, Tetris, of course, Tetris. There you go. There's Tetris in the terminal. I mean, what more do you need in life? Yeah, thank you. And then Butterfly. I mean, you just need to... Yes, I want to unleash the power of the butterfly. There you go. Amazing physics going on. Important thing to have in the terminal. Tabs. That's true. That's true. Tabs. Tab bar mode. Let's see. Can we click? Yeah, I can click the tabs. But I wouldn't turn that on by default in a minimal config. However, I probably would turn it on in the unnecessary section. So tab bar mode 1. And probably tweak some other things with that, but it is kind of nice to have that. Then you could probably also have a status line up here as well, which would be kind of cool. Menu bar mode does work, yeah, for clicking. So menu bar mode, boom. You can click on any of these. You can't really drag around, but you can just click between them if you want to. So that could be helpful sometimes, especially if you're kind of lost on what key bindings to use for certain things. But it seems that FIDO mode is displaying the key bindings for some of the things inside of the mini buffer area whenever you're kind of moving around. So VC mode, yeah, using VC mode instead of Magit. I need to spend more time with that. I think that I should probably give it a fair shot. We did a stream on that maybe 3 months ago or so. And I don't remember what the conclusion was on that. Obviously, it's not as good as Magit, but if I'm going to go as far as to say I'm going to use mostly built-in functionality in a terminal, then I would have to use VC mode. Set opt tab bar show 1 only shows tabs when there are more of them. And sometimes it's nice to have them visible already to remember to use them because I forget. And then again, in my actual Emacs config, I do have it actually turned on. Whatever. Any other thoughts? Like, have I successfully piqued your interest in trying to use terminal Emacs a little bit more than as just like an afterthought? Because I think there's value to it. I think there's value to it for myself. I have seen the value of it. And looking at this, wow, looking at this super minimal setup, I mean, you could get rid of the inhibit startup message also if you are not a freak like me that just wants to go straight into the scratch buffer. So you could have basically 2 lines that you could just run using MetaX without having an init.el to turn off menu bar mode if you wanted to, and then turn on FIDO vertical mode, and then just kind of get the business. So it is kind of nice from that perspective, I think. Checking the chat. Ed says, if you start Emacs inside tmux, xterm mouse mode can cause issues. I could see how that would be the case. Bruno says, would it make sense to split your screen like this on your phone using a very small font and some surgical magnifier glasses? I don't know. That just seems like a pain in the ass. Speedo says, just tuned. I use Emacs mostly in terminal only via WSL and Windows. I'm surprised by how well it works. Yeah, it does work really well. You know, I would probably just zone out in Windows. If I had to be in Windows every day, I would just like ignore the whole world of Windows. I would open up like a Debian, WSL environment with terminal Emacs in it and just work in that the whole time. That's what I would do. Most people wouldn't actually be able to tell it's not actually GUI. Yeah, for sure. Like, it looks pretty good once you have some tweaks in there. Zerika says GUI is better. Not for everything. Some things is definitely better. Org mode, I would say GUI is probably better. That's the one thing I didn't actually show here. Let me open up an org file. So if I were to open up, let's see. Oh, wow. It actually does that. That's cool. If you hit a backspace at a path, it deletes the whole thing. So that's actually pretty nice. Sites, whatever. Systemcrafters.net. Let's go to the show notes for the current video. Videos, craft your system with geeks. How to organize your config. Are you loading? Okay, Jay. So it doesn't look very good. What would I say here? It's visual fill mode? No. How do you wrap auto fill mode? That's not right either, is it? Visual line mode. There it is, visual line mode. And maybe you want to set the margins a little bit to make it look a little bit better. But your theme will matter a lot for this to make your headings have different colors to stand out better. I think you can tweak those with the modus configurations. At least they're bolded, so they stand out a little bit that way. But it is possible to edit org files pretty well. I did have some issues with Alt-Enter in some places, but apparently it's working pretty fine here. So, I mean, this looks good. Like, with a good theme, editing org mode files is pretty nice, I would say. Truncate lines, maybe truncate lines. Setting your editor variable is great for integration with other terminal tools like Get. Yeah, if you use Emacs client with the editor variable in the shell, then things will just pop up straight in your existing Emacs session. If you have server mode on or an Emacs daemon. Peter says, why not a Geeks WSL2 environment? I haven't tried it yet. I know it's possible. I know that Geeks System Image can make one. I would like to try it and then maybe make a video on it at some point to see how good it is. One thing I've noticed is that you don't get the full init system setup on the other types of Linux images. Like, I don't know if systemd is actually really running in WSL2. I could be wrong about that. It didn't in the past. I think that you didn't have normal stuff like that in the past. So I don't know if the Geeks running in WSL2 will allow you to have a Geeks daemon running and to be able to run builds. I hope it's possible. Morgan says, what happens if you try to use variable pitch mode? Probably nothing. Let's see. Variable pitch mode. Yeah, nothing. There is italicized text here, though. You see that? That's kind of interesting that it does italicized text. I guess terminals can do that. WSL2 isn't running unless you turn it on. Yeah, you got to turn that. Oh, systemd. Gotcha. Yep. Peter says, yes, it allows you to run the Geeks daemon. I would do that. I would certainly do that. If I could run Geeks inside of WSL2, like full Geeks, and run it, at good performance, I would do that. If I had to use Windows. Because then I could do all my stuff. I could have my Emacs configuration set up the way that I wanted to, use it directly. It would be good. Iner says, what you describe for Windows is exactly what I do for work. Yeah, Speedo said that also in the YouTube chat. So I think WSL2, if you're stuck in Windows, it's a great option for having a Linux-style development workflow. All right, so I think that's it. I might challenge myself to try using this a little bit going forward, just to see how it goes. I'm going to drop the configuration we worked on today, the final configuration. And you could go try it for yourself in your own Emacs terminal environment. Just for those of you who don't know, if you already have... Ooh, let's see if copying works. No. That's one thing that you will have to deal with. Oh, yeah, we didn't take a look at this post by Wei Han. I recommend taking a look at that because it does talk about this clip TTY package, I think it was called, that does help you integrate your, what do you call it? Your Emacs yank ring with the desktop environment clipboard, which you probably want to have. If you want to copy text from the terminal and then paste it into a graphical program, you kind of need that. Okay, I'll put that in there too, alternate ved. So Emacs Kick. What is that actually? Emacs Kickstarter for Vim, NeoVim users. That looks pretty cool, actually. Damn, I'm gonna try that. That looks good. Nice work, nice work. I like that. I'll check that out. All right. Yeah, I'll copy the configuration in there off stream. I'm not gonna waste your time with that. So, I don't know. I'm feeling kind of inspired to try this a little bit more after the stream. Hopefully you are too. Let me know in the comments or in the System Correctors forum.systemcorrectors.net, or in IRC what you think about this. And also feel free to send along any pointers from your own investigations into minimal configurations for Emacs in the terminal, because I would certainly be happy to see what people are coming up with. Peter says Emacs Kick is what you feel after 5 minutes. At 5 minutes after starting Emacs, you got to have your cup of coffee there too, I think, for that to work. Okay. So check out the new System Correctors video, how to organize your Geeks configuration. Keep an eye out for another video next week, and I hope you all have a great weekend. And hope you all have a great weekend. Until next time, happy hacking. We'll see you.